Hello, welcome to Epilepsy Warrior Channel. My name is John Jewell. I am a peer recovery specialist and I have lived with epilepsy for since the age of 8. Today we're going to go over photosensitivity triggering. So this isn't everybody, but in the United States you have 3.4 million people with epilepsy, and 3 to 5% of those people have photosensitivity, which is what I have. Out of that, that means about 100,000 to 170,000 people have photosensitivity triggering epilepsy. You might think like, well, that's not a lot of people. Well, it's a big difference though. And so the people that do have it need to know something. There are ways to, because you're going to think, I have photosensitivity. And with that, like, if you look it up, it's going to tell you like video games, all these things are your triggers. It could be from video games to flashing lights to like I live in rural Iowa and there's like a train can go by with a street light and you're going to see flashing lights in between each cart of the train. To some people that can be a triggering event. I'm lucky it doesn't. For me, the only triggering event I ever had was so I was at a Halloween event at a friend's. They put up a Halloween display and everything. They were great. It looked great. I had never had a problem with Halloween before, but they had the lights weren't covered completely. So if you went into their yard and looked up front, you saw the back of the light. So everybody else was seeing a covered light. When I saw the back of the light fresh from the bulb, that almost instantly triggered my epilepsy. And I almost had a seizure right there in public on a Halloween night in at my friend's yard. The catch was, so I immediately put my hand up, covered my eyes. That is one of the things you can do. If you, according to, and these are things you can find on the Epilepsy Foundation website. You can also just like, for me, some of the stuff I've done nowadays with Google, you can just ask it a question and it'll come up with all kinds of displays. And then you can figure this out yourself too. You don't have to, you know, ask the doctor right away. Some of these things are easy to understand. You don't have to need to be diagnosed with it to exactly know how to work with it. Because my problem always has been my doctors are great doctors. I've never thought they were bad. My only problem has been that with them, I only see them for like maybe 30 minutes or less every 6 months. For when I first started, it was 6 months, every 6 months because medicine needed to be renewed. Now it's like every 2 years, but it's only for like 30 minutes or less. So unless you remember everything and you know everything to do, you're not going to remember all the things. So if you have photosensitivity, one, don't feel so left out. There's a lot of people with it, and it's not the end of the world. There's ways to deal with it. So for me, like I learned out Halloween lights. So then I would go to mazes with my friends, but we'd only go to one because it was the only one that had very little amount of light. And they would walk, I would close my eyes and my friends would walk me through that part of the maze. It was a very short part of the maze. And they would tell people to like they'd flag everybody, nope, can't do the scary stuff right now. Don't do that. And then we'd get through it and then we'd be the rest of the maze, which was, they scary it still, but they just didn't have the flashing lights part of it. That's how I did it. So I was still participating in Halloween. Another thing, so like my parents were very strict about video gaming when I was a kid because they had heard something about the whole um seizures to caused by video games. My parents didn't understand too much back then. It was when epilepsy was just starting to be understood. So they didn't have a lot of resources to explain things to them. But one thing I know is um, when it came to video games, and this is what I do myself, and this is what it'll say on the website, and it's a perfectly good example, is for TV and video games. The best thing you can do is to have it so they're not you're not watching them all the time and you don't watch them in the dark. So even like your computers, your phone, like if you're a person who looks at your phone before you go to bed, um, if you have epilepsy and your photosensitivity, that means probably don't do it in the dark. So you can look at your phone still, but just and watch something, but don't do it in the dark. Because if you do, you have a better chance of having a problem with that. For video games, yeah, try not to have those. Um, one, be careful what video games you get because some of them are like that. But and movies, same with that. Some movies nowadays do explain that there's photosensitive triggers in it. which is very good. That's a new thing. They just started that in like probably the last 5 or so many years that I've noticed in movies. The first movie I noticed it was in last three or last two of the um Star Wars films. So not The Awakening, but the last one, Luke Skywalker, something about the Skywalker Jedi stuff. Anyways, I'm not going to get into that. That's geek stuff, and I love that. But anyways, so they have warning signs right in the beginning of the movie that point out photosensitivity because of the way the lights are. So to deal with that, I will watch shows, movies, and play video games in that light. So my whole living room will be lit up. So there's no way I'm going to really see a flash too much. It's too much into the rest of the atmosphere that it doesn't get as it doesn't my mind and eyes do not notice it as much as it would if I had all the lights off and I was just staring at the TV. And like I said, that goes with your phone. If you're looking at your phone for bed, it's probably better to have the lamp on than off when you're doing that if you're photosensitive. Another thing is, and so this was me, I found out that I got the tickets to a Godsmack concert, and I love Godsmack. Their music, I've loved a lot of their music. I was going to go to their concert, and then I don't know why, something came to my mind about it, and I looked into, I Googled it, like, how is Godsmack concert with photosensitivity or something like that. And it comes up, and right off the bat, there is like huge, like the first 5 pages, websites are all about video about how Godsmack concerts are not good for photosensitivity because all the light flashing and all the stuff that they have on the concert and how dark it is all the time for the concert. I ended up having to sell those tickets to some friends and not go to the concert because I knew, because of my photosensitivity, I was going to have a seizure in public. And I had gone a couple of years without having seizures. So the last thing I wanted to do was trigger my seizures all over again. When it comes to like things to avoid, to look out for. So we talk about screens, phones. Another way to do it with screens and phones is like if so you're in front of your TV, try and stay back like 8 feet or something. And we all know we have like big TVs now. I have a friend who has like way too big of one. It takes up her whole wall. It's crazy. But you do that, that's a good way to avoid it. So like 8 feet back from the TV, that's a good example. And if you're from a computer, like I am right now, try and stay like 2 feet away from the screen where the light's at and stuff. That's a really good way to help with some of that stuff. Um, Also, like if you're worried about some of the flashing lights, because you know how social media will go off and like there's flashing lights, there's movies, there's Giphy clips, there's just all this stuff, all the things going on, and it's like, I even get a little headache sometimes from that. No seizure, thankfully, but headache sometimes. So for that, you have to go into settings, but there's a way to set off in settings, turn off autoplay, and it will make it so the GFI or the small, the clips and stuff, all those movies, like from the feed and stuff, they will not go off anymore because it's the autopilot is off. So that means it won't do it. It waits for you to click on it before it'll do something. That gives you a chance to actually decide if this is good or bad. And I want to try and see if I can watch this. Because we all know there's plenty of stuff on social media that like we don't give a crap about. So if we had a choice do we want it to trigger a seizure or do we want to put a chance into that? The answer would be no. Most of it would be no because we don't give two shits about some of that stuff. Most of it's ads or someone wants to follow you to follow them that you have no clue about. So that's a good way to avoid that. Another one that I've understood, I looked this up. There's special glasses you can wear that have a thing with filtering out the red light. I guess red light is what triggers it, the flickering of the red light, something like that. But there's special wear glasses you can wear. There's brands that do that, so that's good. Um, and like I said with the Halloween, when I will go there with my friends when I still did. We'd close my eyes around the flashing lights. That is a straight way to do it. If you close your eyes quick enough, and you cover them with your palms so that like light can't go through. Both eyes have to see it to be triggered, and they have to see it in like a certain amount of time before they're triggered. So if you put your glasses over, and that's the whole reason why when I was at that person's house and they had the flashing light Halloween display and I almost had a trigger in their yard. The only reason I didn't have the seizures because I put my hand up, covered my eyes, and turned my head, and then never looked back that direction because I knew what it was going to do. If I had not put my hands up, or if I had not turned my head, I would have had a seizure right there in public. So those are some tips on that. Um, Another thing, and this is my parents, like I said, were with this a lot, and they thought like these things would trigger it no matter what. But one thing to also do is so like computers and games. So like I'm on my computer typing all the time, or I'm doing this kind of stuff, or I'm in the other room playing some video games. I'm a person with Final Fantasy and all that kind of stuff, so not as much as flashing lights in those games to a certain degree, but enough that it helps to also take a break in that process. So like if you're going to go with on my computer, I'll only go so long staring or typing at my computer before I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a short break. I'm going to go do something, relax my eyes. And sometimes it can be a short break, sometimes it can be a long break, whatever works for you. And the same can go with video games. So usually I only play my video games for a certain period of time. And usually the only thing that stops me is like if trying to beat a level before I can save the status of my game. But that's about it. So with that, I would like say don't you can count the time on that. Um, then the other thing that I've also noticed with this that makes a lot of sense is also when it comes to your seizures, after a while you can kind of come up with an idea of what some triggers and what some aren't. It takes time. So it took me years to figure out what some of my triggers were, and I went through a lot of episodes of trying to figure that out. I figured out the two biggest one, like we were talking about, is flashing lights and caffeine. Now, I know there's other ways to trigger seizures, and I know I've been triggered other ways. Like heat can do it to some people. I had a whole summer once where heat was a problem. But with that, try and figure out what your triggers are. And that's a good way to do it too. But one of the key things is out of all the causes of seizures, tiredness and lack of sleep is the number one leading cause of seizures. Second leading cause is uh, okay, second leading cause is stress. So those are the two top leading causes is sleepiness and stress. So those are just ways to do that. I have a video or two and I have some blog articles about stress relief and how stress triggers and all that stuff. So if you want to check those out. But that should be it for today. I appreciate you listening to this. So I hope this helps with anybody who has photosensitivity triggering for epilepsy, like me. If you can, like, subscribe, or share, and I would really appreciate that. But at the end of it, you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you.